we all have an identity, and it can be split in multiple sub-identities. So with transformation, the ultimate depth is when you're allowing a person to see through the construct of their identity. That's where the freedom comes from. That's where a much wider level of choice comes from. So it's based on insight. And it kind of, the insight follows a path of, you kind of orient, so you help a person sort of think about things differently. And then at some point, something clicks. Suddenly something just shifts. They see a belief isn't true. They see somehow how they construct themselves. And that can lead to a massive release, as some of you have experienced. I have experienced myself. And then there's a phase of integration, because then the question is like, well, what do I do now? So I had that when I was shifting career. I think it was in 2012, or I can't remember, early 30s, when I suddenly started, everything started kind of breaking through into little other pieces. And that's how my career suddenly just didn't seem right anymore. And so the skills, the gifts that I believe you probably have innately are high empathy. So feeling other people's feelings, intuition, so spotting patterns that can't always be explained logically or rationally, and self-awareness. So you can see your thoughts and emotions. You can see that they're not who you are. You can see them come and go. And this is important because you affect another person's experience just by having this ability and being with them. But we'll come to more details a bit later. Okay, performance coaching and why the coaching industry can feel like it sucks sometimes. I hear people say this, I hear coaches say this, because it can feel like it's a bit capitalistic. It exploits kind of people just by selling them things they don't really need, and they don't really get what they need, but just what the marketing makes them feel like they want. It can ignore systemic issues and make them individual, like, oh, it's just your mindset and your beliefs that you have to change. As someone once said to me, oh, is coaching just paid friendship? Are you just paying, what's the difference between what you're doing and just being a friend? Well, that's a fair question. But yeah, a lot of people come to me as clients and they say, I don't want to keep talking to my husband or my wife or my friends. I need someone who's objective and who does this professionally, not just when they've got time on Saturday. And then now there's questions about automation and AI and whether that will replace, coaching with humans. Another issue with considering, your transformational gifts and how you want to bring them is that business can suck. Again, it's kind of embedded in capitalism. It can feel pretty lonely if you're a solopreneur. I felt that going from a huge profession, huge organizations to just me. There's not a lot of guidance. There's not a lot of structure. You have to sort of go on courses and learn business from people or mentors. There's a lot of financial uncertainty. When you're reaching out to offer your transformational gifts within a business structure, you can face rejection and failure. So it's a big emotional journey to be in business within our current economic system. And we haven't even touched on money. Why performance coaching can be unhelpful. So I promised I'd touch on this. Performance coaching obviously is based on goals. It's about setting a goal, an objective, and then having your coach holding you accountable and designing a strategy and sort of asking you questions when you're not doing what you said you would do. Like the GROW model, which is pretty famous. Whereas transformational coaching is more about self-discovery. And I don't always offer an objective or a goal. I say, I can't promise anything. I'm with you on the journey, but I don't know exactly where you'll end up. So some people come to me and they say, I want to leave my job. And then within a few weeks, they're like, no, actually, I'm seeing it differently and I love my job now. Or they want to stay in their job and then they find that actually, no, it just doesn't suit them anymore. Like one of my earlier clients wanted to improve her leadership skills and then realized, you know, and this organization is too small for me. It's just not going to be the right place for me to offer my transformational gifts. The other thing is most people are already under a lot of pressure. So more goals and more pressure doesn't help, especially if you're already a high achiever, you're highly responsible, you're someone who overgives. It's just, it re-traumatizes sometimes. So it can cause more burnout. And in my opinion, performance coaching in this kind of format, which is just about goals, there are different flavors of performance coaching. I don't want to just be a critic, is that we're in a phase of our human and planetary journey where just this growth kind of oriented mindset is becoming very risky and dangerous. And so we can accidentally reinforce this constant growth and goal orientation at all costs inadvertently. I think some of the reasons people see coaching have changed. For example, instead of being better at their job or career, they want to make their job or career work better for them. And I think we see this in younger generations. Even leaders now, instead of want just to make the company more profitable, they want to make it more equitable and sustainable. And there's this whole ESG, environment, social governance movement, and other flavors of that have come into profit-based organizations. The idea of a lifelong career is getting a little questioned, and people are accepting transitions and second careers and encore careers, portfolio careers, and other things. So conventional success is being maybe challenged into going for more authentic success that you define. So if you can help people with any of these things with your transformational gifts, you have a path in front of you. But at the core of it, I don't think the reasons that people come for support, for transformation, for that kind of evolution of their consciousness and their being, so that it aligns with something deeper or bigger, whichever way you want to look at it, they haven't changed. I think the reason people come for help is kind of basically this, that there's a sense of possibility, but it seems impossible. And so there's a feeling of powerlessness or stuckness that they want help with. And this kind of feeling is represented by underlying core, what we call in coaching, limiting beliefs. And these are three main ones. You could possibly fit every limiting belief under one of these, which is, I can't have what I want. I'm not good enough, which is basically what imposter syndrome is. And I don't belong. So this feeling that we can't connect or we're not welcome. And then with transformational coaching, you can shift them. And some of the liberating questions that are powerful in this context are, what lights you up? So helping people to reconnect with their deepest desires and life force, life impulses, which are often suppressed or overexpressed. Who are you without your old story? So helping people see through the narratives that they're holding, including systemic narratives that affect certain groups more than others. And I think this is important for really holistic coaching. It can't just be about the individual having to change. There has to be an acknowledgement of the systemic factors that affect people's ability to express themselves. There has to be an acknowledgement of the systemic factors and a discussion, reflection of what can be done. What's the sphere of influence of this person beyond just trying to change themselves? And then, of course, who can help you? If you're a high achiever, highly independent, or you're mistrustful of relationships, you might tend to isolate and just try to do it all on your own, or sort of have this heroic kind of thing. And then that requires some work as well. So this is what you can do with, I believe, with transformational coaching, like really important work beyond just setting goals and, getting more money or more whatever. Pay and performance. Instead of pay and performance, it's more like purpose. Okay, so back to you. If you are interested, if you already are a guide who helps people to shift out of powerlessness and into the possible, what specifically is your flavor? What do people come to you for? Is there a theme? Is there a pattern? Is there something that lights you up, specifically a particular area? And if you don't do it, what's missing from these people's lives? If you don't take up this calling, what's missing from their lives if they can't get your help? That's both a way to identify what it is that you offer specifically, your own flavor of gifts, but also to see if you can to allow your own desires to come forth. I don't know if you've thought about this, but this is something I've been thinking of more recently, which is, what's your coaching approach? What are your beliefs? How do you believe people change? Or what do you believe coaching is about? And I'll be sharing my own approach in a moment. And then, what's in your toolkit? What are your favorite practices, reflective questions, distinctions? I know one or two of you here we met at circling, which is a particular modality. What's your thing? And I just want to pause here and see if anybody wants to share. If I just want to check the chat. So this is my current definition: coaching without coaching. We're not doing something to someone. We're co-locating in the field of possibility. This is a picture from NASA. Apparently this is the early universe. This is what the universe looked like when it was born, I think. So we're meeting in this big field, this universe. And the only advantage, or the only reason the coach is taking on this guidance type role, is because they've spent more time being lost in this field and trying to locate themselves and locate others. So we're like, hey, are you over there? I'm over here. I see this thing. What do you see? Oh, you see that? Oh, I think that's this. Is that right? So you're trying to co-locate your experience of reality. You're trying to meet somewhere and create a sense of shared reality. And I think this is really powerful for where we are in our human sort of evolution, because we're learning to, Ram Dass said this, like, walk each other home, walk each other back to a sense of basic sanity from which we can actually engage with reality and its possibilities in a much more juicy, enjoyable, and wise way. Now I just want to quickly present my own framework, which I've developed over years. And this is what it currently looks like. And again, I encourage you to develop your own and not to rush it, just to take time and think, how do I think coaching works? And some of it will just come to you. Eleanor, you're a creativity kind of a genius. So you know what it's like when you just have an idea. And this is how PPP came to me. It just came like presence, power, possibility. I was like, oh, okay, fine, let's do that. And then it's over time that I worked out what each thing meant. And I triangulated it, and it just made sense to me in so many different ways. So presence, you might have an intuitive understanding of it, but to me, it means, it's a meeting reality, by remembering the truth of being. So when I start with grounding, I'm practicing presence in my coaching without coaching approach. Power. this is, we're returning to our ability to make intuitive choice, not a program choice that comes from my conditioning, not an overly reasoned choice that actually I don't really want to do, but it's what I should do. It's this ability we have, an intuitive ability to say this, not that, but without getting hung up on the options. So this involves letting go of old beliefs and then embracing new ones, but knowing that beliefs are just beliefs. Intuition is prior to belief. Yeah, I don't want to get too philosophical, so let's go to possibility. Co-creating the impossible by playing in the field of limitless potential. So, and this is kind of like a process. So once you re-engage, once people have that sense of, oh, I can choose, I don't have to do X or Y, suddenly their possibilities multiply. They feel much lighter. It doesn't mean it's easy, but their experience of life is different. And I insist on co-creating, not creating, because this thing of doing it alone, that's part of some of the trauma that we have. Or it's part of conditioning that's unhelpful at this stage of our human evolution, in my opinion. The 6 R's also a practice. This I wrote about in my book, The Success Trap. And it wasn't within this framework, but now it's ended up being in this framework. So the practices that I find helpful in my work are relax, reflect, release, reconnect, respond, receive. And I won't go into the details of those. Hopefully, it's fairly obvious. Releasing is that massive release that happens when we shift, when we have an insight, and our whole mind-body system kind of recalibrates. Like we're unthawing somehow, and then the blood is circulating again, and there's pain in some places. But then we reconnect with this intuitive ability to make our own choices and create with others. What does this mean in practice? And I just want to check if there are any questions or comments. I love your co-locating analogy metaphor and makes good sense of what I'm doing as green mindful coach. Cool. Thank you, David. I'm glad it resonates. James, why do you insist on co-creating? Oh, audio draft, okay. Because of this, what in Buddhist psychology is called the interdependence, the truth of interdependence. We're trained in sort of more individualistic cultures and sort of competitive capitalism types of things that we're just like a lone hero or heroine who has to do it alone. And I know many coaches who use this kind of creating thing, like go and create the life you want. And even I used it. But now I'm at a place where I don't think that's a helpful way. We have to just accept that we're embedded in a relational field and in a web of life. I hope that makes sense. Any other questions before we move to the more practical or comments? I'm also conscious of time, 20 past. Maybe we power through this and then have a dialogue at the end. Speak now, or you'll be held on this slide presentation for a few more minutes. All right, I'll assume that's okay. So tools, obviously your innate skills and gifts of empathy, intuition, and awareness. These are your coaching without coaching #1 tools. You just have to hone them, because sometimes we've disowned them in favor of rational problem solving, for example. So it's not that rational problem solving you abandon, but you allow yourself to reclaim these other gifts. Consent and curiosity. So the difference between a chat and an actual transformational process can be that you're slowing things down and making sure the person wants to continue, and bringing curiosity to the conversation rather than the problem solving. So I mean, I hope that's obvious. You're asking, you're saying, look, I've been training as a coach, or I've been learning these coaching skills, and I want to ask you a few questions. Is that okay? Anna said I'm cutting, he can't hear me and I keep cutting out. Am I cutting out? No? Okay. Thank you. So, and then the last tool I want to mention is the 50-50 tool, which is a mindfulness tool. That's putting 50% of your attention on them and 50% on you. So this is another version of boundaries. Like you can't, or you don't have to put all your attention on a person and be completely absorbed in their story and their emotions, and then they leave feeling great and you leave feeling so drained. So you can, this is what we were taught in the mindfulness course, which is you just stay embodied, 50% of your attention listening, feeling what they're feeling, and 50% back to you. And this has many benefits, not least of which is practicing non-attachment to the outcome, because you notice when you start to become reactive and go into a pattern of like, okay, I don't like the way this powerlessness feels, so I'm gonna just jump in now with the answer. I just can't tolerate listening to them a minute longer. Yeah, and I'll leave that there. What else? Yeah, a conversation. How might you structure a conversation? If you want to start taking this further, here's a little framework and create your own. But if you want a little starter for 10, here's one. So practicing presence, meet their reality by listening first. Not just, but then you have to shift to power. And you start surfacing that underlying reality so you can co-locate. So then you're asking questions like, oh, so you think this? Oh, that. Oh, right. Well, it sounds like this. Is that right? And there's some questions coming in a moment. And I'll send you these slides, by the way, if you want to have a look again. So don't worry about notes. And then by then they should have an insight, or it's likely to give them an insight. They're like, oh, I'd never thought of it that way. Oh, okay. So you notice you didn't give them the answer. They came to an insight by themselves. So there's very little effort on your part other than being curious and asking questions. And then they might land somewhere. If you want to help them kind of integrate this shift, then you can just ask them, okay, so what are you taking away? Or what do you want to do now? How does that change things for you? That's it. Transformation done. Specifically the questions. So as I said, when you connect, tell me a bit about the situation and see if you can identify what are they feeling and why. Now, again, this requires self-awareness that you're not getting too activated or stressed by their feelings. You can say, I can't talk now. Can we talk later? If it's just too much stress for you. Reveal, so then you can reflect back. Oh, it sounds like, and it sounds like you're assuming, and then check, is that true? See if you can pick up what's the possibility or the desire they have, and why do they think they can't take action towards it? If you want to really facilitate that, you can't guarantee an insight, but keep facilitating it. Ask them the subtractive question. So what would it be like either to let go of that assumption that we were talking about, or to embrace the thing you want? Just using that imagination creates a sense of possibility. And then give them a specific question as to how this changes things for them. Again, you may have your own questions. There are millions of other questions. This is just an example of coaching without coaching in my experience. All right, so final part, unless there are any questions. Is that a question? Share my connected experience. They go into fixing mode. Can you clarify what you mean, James?
Yeah, I put that as a bit of a like placeholder there. It might be like a different discussion topic, but it was just something that I wanted to like ask about. I can do it now. I was thinking about experiences like sometimes sometimes I'm hearing something that's coming up for someone and I'm empathizing and I want to share, like share my experience. Potentially something's coming up in me that's like a connected experience. And I choose to share that in order to connect with them, and then it can potentially shift and they can become more interested in my experience than what we are in with. And like I could just say that that's happening with them, like notice that's happening with them, and then like sort of direct it back to them. But I just notice sometimes people can get really like, oh no, but what's happening for you? It can become like quite a derailing thing. So I just wondered,
Yes, great question. Yeah, well, I think it comes back to the intention of the conversation. Is it like a circle, a modality practice where we're learning to share our experience? Or are you taking on the role of the transformational guide? In which case, you have to be very mindful of what you're sharing and why. And make sure, you can sometimes call this a role reversal, where you become now the focus of the other person's attention. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Is that
that
yeah. Yeah. Is that good for now?
Yeah, that answers my question. Definitely.
We can come back to it later because it's a great question. And quite common. All right. So final two things. Testing coaching in your current role. So I like just having simple sentences and reaching out to people. And reweaving our social fabric is learning to take risks in relationships and showing ourselves, revealing ourselves, asking for what we want, giving people the freedom to say yes or no without punishing them. So you could say I've been training to anyone. I've been training as a coach. If I would, yes, by the way, this is within an organization. So this could be your boss, your manager, or somebody who has funding that you want to get support from. So I would use this kind of sentence because it doesn't create any pressure. You just say, I've been training as a coach. If I were to offer whatever to help the team achieve whatever the team is struggling with, would it be of value? Or would you be open to testing it for 3 months? Very low pressure. It would be very difficult for someone to say, no, we don't want any help with the team's problem. We don't want you to work harder. So that's a way to just gently test something in your current role. And you can offer, I don't know, a special type of office hours, a workshop, something, facilitate a team away day, just do random thoughtful conversations. But the point is you're signaling this different context. And it's not just ask once and that's it. Like you might have to ask several times until it becomes a thing on the agenda. Like, oh, so-and-so was really wanting to do this, and I think it's a good idea. And as you enroll more people, it's more likely to happen. And obviously people are like, well, why do you want to do this? Just say, I'm doing it because I'm interested and I want to grow, I want to contribute to the organization, and I'm doing it in exchange for feedback so I can become a better coach. And yeah, spend time with other people. If you're becoming really interested in it, make sure you continue to nourish that interest of yours. I won't spend a lot of time here because I think it's easier for me to respond to specific situations, but I would say just pitch, just offer something and see what happens. Testing it in the business, if you want to do it outside an organization. So again, I started out, by the way, in my organization at the time, Public Health England. I just invited colleagues and said, I'm training as a coach. Would you like to have a session with me in exchange for feedback? And people said yes, and it was helpful, which made it easier when I then tested it as a business. So I've been trying to reach out to people who inspire you, who you know, who are your colleagues, your network, your friends, your family, whatever. I've been training as a coach. and I help with X. It's important to be specific. Like with people who are changing careers, with people who are growing a business, with people who have a relationship, want to divorce, whatever it is. So you can ask, would you be interested? Or who do you know who might need this kind of help? And you can build a business just with this. So I put a reference of a book there because you need to keep it simple. People get lost with business because they go into all this complex marketing stuff that they don't need, and then they burn out, and it's just it's too much energy. So keep it simple and conversational. It's not about the tech, it's about the high touch. Have a limited number of slots in your calendar, so you don't feel that you're overexposed, and you're not overgiving. If you're running a business, your energy is your number one capital. Again, I don't want to spend too long here, but again, exchange for testimonials and feedback to start with. If you can, do write about the experiences and share it online, because that's how more people get to know about you. That's how one of my first clients came. She said, oh, I saw a thing online. Are you a coach now? I'm looking for a coach. In parallel, if you're thinking of moving completely into offering your transformational gifts as a business through a business vehicle, then people worry about money and finances, which is legitimate. But I would say if you inventory your needs, what are your needs? People don't know what their needs are. We're trained out of knowing what our needs are, but this can really make your life so much easier. What are your needs? Basic needs, other needs, must-haves, need to have, want to have, nice to have. And how are you going to meet them? Because we're trained to think we can only meet our needs through the money system, but that's not true. So you might find that you don't actually need that much money to live on to meet your needs. And I know that that's helped people to sort of calm the money fears as they shift, including me. All right, so we looked at how the coaching industry is changing, what a transformational model is, the importance of your empathy, intuition, self-awareness, which I think is going to become more valuable in the future. What a coaching without coaching conversation looks like, and a few tips on how to test it in your role or in your business or as a business. All right, so we have about 10 minutes.